Okay. So, taking a second to load now. Okay, here we go. So the focus for the session today is on the implementation. So taking much of what we have discussed in the previous two sessions and how we actually build on that now and implement it as part of our work moving forward. We'll just skip through all of this. I just wanted to draw your attention and a reminder that I will provide a copy of the slides. I'll send them to Florian, which he can circulate to you all afterwards. So all of these resources that I'm going to mention, you know, they'll all be included there, okay? But yeah, so I just wanted to draw your attention to some kind of like further resources and reading around and some of this work that you might find useful. So just in kind of like overall digital campaigning, movement building, kind of narratives for change, just a couple of resources that I tend to kind of check in with a lot. The first one of those being the Mobilization Lab, really, really good, all things kind of like digital campaigning and movements for progressive social change.
Craig, sorry to interrupt you. Did you let in Eliza, because there's a message in the chat?
Oh, okay, sorry. Oh, there is one in the bit. Sorry about that. Yep, she's in now. Hi, Eliza. Sorry about that. So, Eliza, just bringing you up to speed, we are going to just kick off. We have an hour session this morning. There was a little bit of a confusion over the timings. So we're looking at kind of like tips and tools for implementing our digital communications and campaigning strategies moving forward. And then for anyone who could stay a little bit longer at the end, we'll just have a bit of a broader discussion, okay? So just talking first about some resources that are available for all things digital campaigning and movement building. So those being the Mobilization Lab, really, really good. Neon, they're primarily based in the UK, but again, really good on digital campaigning, movement building. Frameworks Institute and the Public Interest Research Centre, these two are more in the lines of narrative change and narrative change around kind of like progressive issues as well. So definitely kind of like worth checking those out. So then this section is more into the kind of the tips and tools for managing social media platforms, for social monitoring, listening, and then creating content for our social media channels. So first of all, starting off with the planning, listening, and analytics, okay? So the top of the list there, not just plugging my own website, but on my own website, forachange.org. So much of what we have discussed in the previous sessions is all in here in more detail. So those kind of 7 questions related to digital strategy, so that's all in there. Some tools and tactics for implementation. There's a really in-depth case study. I know we touched on this in the first session on the S-equality referendum. It's in-depth case study there, but there's also a resources section. So all of the resources that I mentioned here and more are all available kind of in this section here, okay? That's that. Just one thing in there as well, there's a link to like a content calendar. So for managing your social media content, here is a template that you can use, broken down kind of like by platform as well. So you can go in there and download your own kind of copy of that. So that's on my website. So what's up next? Okay, so then, you know, there's a lot of different kind of variations of social media management tools out there and kind of content calendars as well. But one that I have found kind of like the most useful is this one called Content Cal. So there is a free and with all of these kind of tools that I'm demonstrating this morning, there is kind of a free and a premium version for most, but the free versions are quite good, quite comprehensive, and this being a good example of that. So when you create a free account on Content Cal, you have like a dashboard like this. And what's good about it is that you can, like, it's not, this wouldn't necessarily be best practice because, you know, sometimes the different platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, requires different messages, different content. But if we're strapped for time, you know, we just want one place where we can schedule the one post to go out on all the different platforms. We can do that here through Content Cal. So you link your different social media platforms to this. You compose your post in here, you add in your images or your video, and then you select what time, what date you want that to go out, add post, and then it populates it into the calendar here. So I suppose the added benefit of this is you have oversight then of any week, any kind of month as to what is scheduled to go out, and then also broken down by the different platforms as well. Okay. So I think Content Cal is a good one for that. So similarly, you know, there's a lot of other management tools out there. Some of you might be familiar with some of these, like Hootsuite, Buffer. Later is good for Instagram as well, and Tweetdeck is really good for Twitter. And so I'm actually like, I primarily would use like the platform's own kind of like tool. So like I'd schedule posts for Facebook and Instagram through Facebook's own creator studio. And then for Twitter, I would use Tweetdeck. And for my social monitoring and social listening, I would use Tweetdeck as well. So I'm actually going to give you a quick demo of that because I think it's a really good, really useful tool, both for planning, but also the listening piece as well, okay? So Tweetdeck is actually owned by Twitter now. So once you're logged into Twitter and you open up Tweetdeck, so tweetdeck.twitter.com, you're automatically logged in and you get a dashboard that looks a little bit like this. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly take you through this. Okay, on the very left here, in this column, that's just my Twitter feed. So if I opened up Twitter on my phone, all of the accounts that I'm following, all those tweets in there, that's coming from here, okay? Then I have like my notifications, just like normal as I would on the app. I have a scheduled column. So here, this kind of feather icon up in the very left-hand corner. So you can compose tweets here as well. So test. You can add in your images or your video here, and then you want to schedule it. So I actually want this to go out next Tuesday at this time, and then so tweet that at that stage. And then that will then appear in the scheduled column here. Ailish is joining us there as well. Hi, Ailish. So we're just doing a demonstration of some of the tools to help us with our social media monitoring and listening, and then for creating content for our social media platforms as well. So you'll see there now that kind of test tweet that we composed is now appearing in the scheduled column here. So that again gives you good oversight of what you have scheduled coming up. So obviously, you know, with social media and Twitter specifically, there's an awful lot of noise going on. And you know, and often it's kind of trying to distill that down and finding, you know, what is relevant for us to be talking about to our audiences. So there's a couple of different ways that I do that cuts out a lot of the time required for this. So these are these other columns here. Okay, so this first one is where I've brought it in a Twitter list. Okay, so on Twitter you can create different lists and that are comprised of different accounts that you're wanting to monitor, okay? So for example, this list here I have is for the national and regional media in Ireland. So all of those kind of Twitter accounts, I've added them into that list. So in this column, I'm only going to see tweets coming from them in that column, okay? So you might have a Twitter list for all of the different youth rise organizations from around the world. They might be in one list, or locally in your own country, you might have a list of other like harm reduction campaigning groups, things like that in another list. You might have your own kind of like one for media in your country. So whatever that might be, and then you can bring that in here, okay? So you create the list in Twitter. So when you are logged into Twitter, you'll see there's a button here on the column on the left called lists. So you go in there. It's running a little bit slow. So, and then so you want to create a new list, okay? So you give it a name, give it a description, and then you can have a public or a private list. So if I created a public list and I added YouthRise to that, YouthRise would get a notification saying, Craig Dwyer has added you to this list. But if I make it private, you wouldn't get that notification. So you wouldn't know that I've added you or that you're on that list. So you can monitor kind of like if there's any competitors or kind of like opposition groups, you can also monitor those as well. You don't need to be following the account in order to add them to the list, okay? And then once you create your list, it's a tiny little bit cumbersome, but so you have to go into the relevant accounts. You click on this button here, and then add or remove to lists, okay? So then you add them to the list that you've created, back into Tweetdeck then, and then you would click on this plus button here over in this like column over in the very, very left, add column, list, and then you select your list, add column, and then it'll just appear in your dashboard here, okay? So that's lists. And then you can also monitor different other things. So here you can look at all of the tweets from a specific user. So I've just kind of put up YouthRise into this column here. So this is just all of the tweets coming from YouthRise, okay? In this column here, you can use the search function. So I'm searching for the username @YouthRise. So anyone who mentions @YouthRise at all of those tweets are going to appear in here, okay? Again, using the search function. So in order to kind of create one of those, again, over here, this add column button on the very left, add column, click on search, and then you put in whatever you wanted to search for there. So in this case, I've put in the keywords harm reduction. And in order for them to appear together as a phrase, you need to put in the quotation marks, okay? Now, so this is where it comes into it where you want to actually kind of distill it down, okay? So when I put in the keywords harm reduction, you're going to see lots and lots and lots of activity here, but you're trying to find what is relevant to you and your audiences, right? So you can filter these as well. Clicking on this button here in each column, there's different options for filtering, okay? And the ones that I use the most are by location and by engagement. So if we're working in Sydney, so we just put that in here. So Sydney, select your location, and then the radius, 100 kilometers surrounding the Sydney area, right? And then also engagement. So you want to see kind of tweets that audiences are interacting with, retweeting and liking. So I'm going to select tweets that get at least 3 retweets, okay? So I've done that now. So now, rather than just a column full of tweets with harm reduction, I'm seeing tweets from Sydney and the surrounding area, and the tweets that got at least 3 retweets. So, it's relevant to my area, and it's also getting good engagement. So I might identify something in there where I can, join in, add value to the conversation. And this is where we're really identifying those conversations that are taking place around the issues that we are campaigning on, and trying to get involved in those and make audiences aware of the work that we are doing. So I think that this can be really useful to kind of like distill that conversation down. So as well as searching by keywords, you can also search for hashtags. So I've put in here just the hashtag support don't punish. So, and again, you might want to filter this. Another thing that you can do is so you just want to see tweets that have images in them. So all tweets are tweets with images. So I just want to see tweets with images, and I want to see tweets that have gotten 5 retweets. So that's going to show me all of those there, okay? So like, I suppose with this, it takes a little bit of time to build and curate your dashboard. But once you've done that, I think this takes out a lot of the time, you know, finding what we should be talking about and all of those kind of different ideas and suggestions and what our audiences are talking about as well. Okay, so definitely worth checking out Tweetdeck. And also Hootsuite does similar things, and you can schedule content to go out for the different platforms on that as well. And the last one that I just want to show you here is called Talkwalker. Okay, so this is actually like a media monitoring listening tool. It's really powerful. It's primarily a paid tool and it's very expensive, but they do have like a free kind of part of it where you can do some quick analytics. So once you set up a free account, you kind of, again, put in your keywords here. Okay, search. And what this does, it pulls in kind of like online media and social media as well, okay? So it just kind of gives you these kind of, like the free version gives you the last 7 days analytics. So it gives you like the numbers of conversations, engagements, reach, but you can also kind of filter this down by country as well. So I only want to see stuff that's kind of relevant in Ireland, okay? You can break down the media types if you want, so just looking at Twitter or just looking at news sites. So I can see there's like online in the last 7 days, there's been 125 conversations mentioning harm reduction, okay? So you can get lots of different kind of cool insights here underneath this as well. So you can look at the different hashtags that were used alongside of harm reduction, brands that were mentioned, emojis that were used, all those kinds of things. You can get kind of a breakdown of the demographics as well, or you can just look at the results as well. And this ranks what are the most kind of like popular, what's getting the most traction related to harm reduction in Ireland over the last 7 days. They will appear in this list here. So there's a couple of tweets there we can see. There's also an article from an online publisher. So, you know, that just, again, this is useful for finding what is being discussed in the media. What are people talking about online? And I think that can kind of like help us stay on top of those conversations as well. So this Talkwalker is a really good tool for that. Okay, I know I'm flying through this, but like I'm just conscious that we only have, that most people only have an hour. But I would say, like, anything that you kind of like the look of, just take a little bit more time yourself and go in and find what you think might be most useful for you, okay? So continuing on then, the next kind of section is on actually creating visual content. So graphics, infographics, short videos as well, a couple of tools for that. Like there's just kind of like some stats there, I won't go through them all, but it's just like how important video is for social media. Yeah, you know, viewers retain 95% of a message when they watch it in a video compared to just 10% when they read it in text. You know, so it's really important. And remembering those things, like, you know, the shorter, the better. So optimum time being anywhere between like 30 to 90 seconds max. And also adding subtitles, adding captions if you have people speaking to camera. Okay, so a couple of tools then for creating content. The first one, some of you might have heard of this, is called Canva. So Canva is really good. It's basically like a graphic design tool for people who are not graphic designers. Again, they do have a free and a premium version. The free version is good enough. You know, I think over time, the more you use it, the more limited it gets because they want to pay for it. But they do offer the premium version to nonprofits for free. And it's actually really easy to get that as well. So just Google Canva for nonprofits. If you're a registered nonprofit, there's a form that you fill out, and there's a very quick turnaround time, and then you'll have access to the premium version for free. What's really great about Canva is that it already has like all of the different templates for the different platforms already sized for you. So if you wanted something for a, Facebook cover, so you just type in Facebook there. Here we go. I'll just choose like Facebook cover from here. There are loads of templates that you can choose from, or you can start with a blank canvas. And then there's lots of like stock icons, images, photos. You can upload your own like logo. You can use your own brand colors. It's really, really, really good, and it's really user friendly as well, which I think is the main thing. So yeah, and like they are starting to incorporate kind of GIFs and animations a little bit more as well. So as you become very proficient users of Canvas, I would kind of suggest starting to explore that as well. But like, and they do have a whole kind of like Canva for nonprofits section where they have kind of tutorials and case studies of where others have used it, which is really, really good. So definitely I would say check out Canva. So the next one I want to show you is Biteable. Okay, so you remember that video that I showed on Tuesday, that animation for the Safer from Harm campaign, the explainer, legalization versus decriminalization? I created that on Biteable, okay? So now the only thing I'm going to say here with Biteable is this is not free. It comes at a cost of, I think it's $250 a year, which is not bad. Like if you're going to be creating, say like a few of these videos a year, I think it works out quite well, and it's good value. So again, I'll just show you this. This is the explainer, the decrim versus legalization one. So I think the best way that I could describe Biteable is it kind of works a bit like PowerPoint, is like, the way you build each slide. So with this one, you just build each scene, okay? So it's just everything. My internet's like a little bit slow now. But right, so you just have your kind of your timeline down here, and when you want to add a scene, click on this. But like there's so many different kind of templates and different scenes that you can choose from, and it's really, really good. So just like, there's loads. So you just select which one you want to use, and then it's just a case of putting in your own text in this box here. So again, really user friendly, and I think like the end product works really well, which hopefully you'll agree. I haven't seen that one that I showed on Tuesday as well. So yeah, maybe it is, if you're looking at really trying to use a lot more video and animations in your digital communications, Biteable might be worth the investment. But what I might suggest doing is like, you can sign up for a free account. It's very limited, but you can get a feel for it and you can try it out and see if it will work for you. And then if you think so, it might be worth making the case then for investing in that. But it's really, really good. And I think it's a great way of getting across kind of like those messages in that short, engaging visual video format on social media for those audiences. Okay, so that's Biteable. The next one I want to show you is Lumen 5. Again, this is really good for just taking pieces of text and turning them into videos. With all of these, there is a free and a premium version. The free version is not too bad. You're just kind of like limited in your choice of themes and colors and fonts, but it's not too bad. So I'm going to quickly just kind of like run through this, but as I was saying, any of these worth going in and trying them out yourself, okay? So once you create your account, this is going to be too slow, I think. Yeah, so you can copy and paste kind of text in here, or you can use, so if you have a blog post on your website and you want to turn kind of like that blog post into a video, you can also kind of like do that, okay? So I've put in the URL from my website in there, and this has pulled out all of the different blog posts that I have on the site. So I select that, and then you select the format that you want it in, so whether it's kind of like landscape or square or portrait. You select that, you select your style that you want it in. And then it kind of like, it builds a little bit here. But what it does, it uses AI so like artificial intelligence to pick up what you're talking about in the text, and then it suggests visuals to go with that. So stock images and stock video, they put it with the text that you're using. And it kind of, it does work quite well. So we'll just kind of like wait for that to work now. Actually, you know, while we're waiting, I will show you a video that I did create using Lumen 5. So this is just kind of like an example. It's not a real life one. You see that blue box? Yeah, cool. So that's just very like short and snappy. But you know, so but like again, you know, I think that that's just much more engaging. So if you did have a post 5 ways of talking about kind of drug use or whatever that might be, you know, just taking that and creating kind of like this format, it's just that little bit different, and you are going to stand out a little bit more. That's just not really working for me, but you get the idea. You see what you can create on Lumen 5, so definitely worth checking out. So the last one that I want to show you here is Headliner. So this is, again, this is really good. There's lots of different features of Headliner. There's lots of templates here that you can choose from. So even if if you have a piece of audio, say you were done like a radio interview or something like that, you can take an MP3 file and create an MP4. You can you pull out kind of like key quotes from that. Again, just puts it into a more kind of like engaging format. Different templates here that you can choose from. But this is also what I use for subtitling videos. Okay, so you'll see here from these features, there's one called Video Transcript. So select on this. Now, I will say I've only ever used this for like the English language, so I don't know what it's like in other languages, but worth checking it out to see. So again, you choose what format you want this to be in. Okay, so landscape, you upload your video file. Okay, so you can choose different languages there. Okay, and then so you'd upload your video file, and then it takes a few minutes just kind of like generate what they think that you're saying. But I have found it to be quite good, quite accurate. So then after a few minutes, you will get a dashboard that looks a little bit like this, okay? So don't be too put off by this, because it is easy enough to navigate and to work with. So you have your little video here in this box, and then all of like the text, all the transcription in this kind of box here. So it's, definitely worth sense checking to make sure. Sometimes, as I said, I've found it to be quite accurate, but they do get certain words wrong that you might need to come in and edit. And it is really easy to do that. So if this is supposed to be woman instead of women, so just come in and make that change there. So really easy to make an edit. Or also, what it's not great for is actually grammar, like full stops, commas, things like that. So you will need to kind of like look out for that and add those in. And so you can, so I'll just pull this over. This is your timeline. So it just the subtitles appear like this along the bottom. But you can change the size, the color of, and the style of font as well there. But that's that, and I think it's very user friendly. When I first kind of came across this tool, like I was just so happy because, you know, up until that stage, I found it really cumbersome for adding subtitles to videos, but this has made my life a whole lot easier. And the free version with this, it gives you 10 free videos a month. Okay, so I think that that's quite good. I haven't gone over that as of yet anyway. So that is Headliner. So the last bit here that I wanted to mention, so it's just kind of like for additional stock footage, for additional stock video clips as well. These are the best kind of like sources that I've come across for those as well. So check out Pixels, Pixabay, and Unsplash. They're really good, really comprehensive, and yeah, so worth checking out. So with my kind of like speed, I actually flew through that. But I like, you know, hopefully like that you did find that useful. Because as I said, like I think a lot of when it comes to our digital campaigning and our digital communications and keeping our social media kind of platforms populated, it is like the difficulty that often arises, or the challenges, is actually having the resources and the time to create that kind of visual engaging content. So those kind of tools there that I mentioned, you know, they're the ones that I have found the best for creating that content, and using kind of like the limited time and resources that we have. As I mentioned, I will provide a copy of these slides so you'll have the names of them all, but they are all listed in the resources section on the For a Change website as well. So does anyone have any questions on any of that, on any of those tools? Happy enough? Okay, cool. What I might do then, before we have about 20 minutes left, I was keen just to provide a space for people, just to like a bit of reflection on kind of like the sessions so far, you know, what you've thought of it, maybe what you've learned, any questions that you had, say maybe coming into this that haven't been answered, you want like to try to raise those now, or anything that arose during the sessions over the last couple of days, and your question related to that, please feel free to do so now. Or also as well, if anyone wants to talk about their own experiences of, you know, using like our successful kind of campaigns and initiatives that were kind of carried out through digital and social media, and they want to kind of talk about that, to share that learning, I think that let's use this space to also to do that as well. So really kind of like want to kind of like hear from our colleagues and from kind of like the international perspectives. So any questions, comments, reflections, please feel free to do so. So either kind of just raise your hand. Yeah, so Florencia, I can see you first there if you want to come in.
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
How can I get more followers on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook? Which strategy should I use to get more followers?
To increase your followers. Yeah. Okay. So the $1 million question. But so I suppose like, look, there's different, I suppose there's just kind of like different methods to try and make your content most engaging in order to build that following. Okay. So I think you'll probably have most difficulty doing it on Facebook, just for the simple reason that it's not growing to the same kind of rate as it once was. And also people are not really liking pages as much as they once would as well, you know, so that's really kind of like gone down. So there's two ways that I could suggest that you would do that. Okay, so one, the organic way would be the Facebook groups that we mentioned. Okay, so if you're kind of like sharing content from your page into a group, into a relevant group where they're having kind of discussions on these topics, So if you're able to kind of like provide value in those, then I think different audiences will say, okay, you know, these guys are valuable. I'm going to learn something here. I'll follow them for that. Okay, so that's, I think that's the best organic way of doing it. So it's Facebook groups. Okay, then outside of that, I would like, you know, if you did have some like money to spend on this, you know, you could be strategic in kind of like how you target audiences. So using the right content, identifying the right target audience. I think with a small amount of budget, then you could also build your following that way as well. But it's about having the right content, you know, and that valuable piece, and then clearly defining the target audience. So, you know, like, so these are going to be people who don't follow you, who haven't seen your say your content necessarily before, but they will be interested in your stuff. So being able to identify those by their demographics and also by their interests on Facebook. The one, like, there's a lot of issues and challenges with Facebook, but the one good thing is that their advertising platform is really powerful. You know, so being able to kind of like identify those target audiences and getting your content in front of them, that is another good way of building your following as well. On Instagram, I think you do have a better opportunity for growing an organic following on Instagram, because people are still in they're in that kind of like audience acquisition phase where they are they are following accounts. You know, people are still kind of like joining the platform in large numbers. So there is more of an opportunity there. But again, just the way the platform is built, it's not as easy to get in front of audiences. So the best way organically to do that is through the use of hashtags. So like, whilst hashtags were like, you know, created and still have a very relevant place on Twitter, they have taken on kind of like a different life on Instagram. And what you will see is like communities are kind of building around different hashtags. So I would say, you know, my advice would be to do your research as to what hashtags are getting good traction in relation to the work that you're doing. And making sure that you're including those in your posts, because people they follow the hashtag, they search for content under it. So that's your best way of organically getting in front of people as well. And then trying to like encourage audiences like to share your content in their stories. That would probably be the best way of getting in front of people organically as well. And then outside of that, yeah, like, you know, you can also do a bit of paid promotion on Instagram. Were you going to come in there?
I have a question with the hashtags.
Yes.
Because here, well, in Spain, we speak Spanish. And I heard that if you write the hashtag with accent, it's more difficult to the computer system, like, read that hashtag, because the hashtag system is like an American or in
yeah,
English.
okay. Do you know what?
We have a lot of debate about this, to write with or not.
I don't know the answer, but what I would say is maybe like just have a look. So if you say have a look at the word, if there's a word that you have kind of like in mind or an example, search for both on Instagram and seeing what has the most posts or what's getting the most traction. And I think base it on that. Then, so finally, just on Twitter, yeah, like, you know, I think you do still have the opportunity to grow your following on Twitter as well, but definitely, you know, I know I keep saying it, but especially on Twitter, people are looking for value. You know, they're wanting to kind of like learn something. So if you're able to kind of consistently be kind of posting content where, you know, people are kind of like taking something away from it, that will turn into following. Also, being proactive as well. So like, you know, I was showing you the different columns on Tweetdeck and trying to identify those opportunities and those conversations that are taking place. And if you're able to go in there and say, oh, hey, look, you know, we're doing work on this, you can find out more here, and include a link to your website, things like that, you know, you'll see a return for your following there as well. you know? And then like relying on your network. Like, so if you've got a core, and this goes across for the 3 platforms as well. So if you have a key kind of like campaign coming up, or, you know, you put resources into kind of creating a good piece of strong content and you're putting that out, make sure that you have your network lined up to amplify and promote that, you know? So like, like I can draw on the Safer from Harm campaign as an example of this, you know. So when we were putting out that public attitudes like research, you know, there was a huge piece of work done to tee up all of like those kind of supporting organizations to make sure that we were having the most impact on that day. So that included like, so like an email that was sent to them, you know, with an outline of like how this was going to be executed online, what time we were going at, suggested messages for them to use, like assets that, like, you know, so visual content that they could use on their social media platforms as well, you know, teeing them up, making it as easy as possible. So then on the day, there was a flurry of activity. You know, so I think sometimes, and it's best when that happens organically, but it's very rare that that does happen organically, you know. But where you can set it up and have people ready to go and to really push your stuff, that will really work, you know. And then your message travels way further, and hopefully you'll see more traction and more following as a result of that. Hopefully that answers your question. Would anyone else like to come in? Please feel free to do so. Or if you'd like to put a question into the chat box, I'll address it there as well. Also, like, you know, if it's not a question, you want to kind of like talk about something that you've done as part of your work, please feel free. We'd love to hear that as well. This is your time. Yeah,
Florenza, yeah, you mentioned before that you had a campaign that you might be interested in talking about. Do you think you could briefly summarize it?
Yes. Well, I work in a project that teach about drugs and sexualities at universities. So because the COVID, we couldn't go on with the present class at the room. So we changed it, and we usually do one intervention in the campus with the students, like passing the prevent message one each other about drugs or sexuality, gender, etc. But because we don't have that space anymore, we had to adapt it for this online campaign. So we work with a lot of little groups in each university. We designed about 8 or 10 littles campaign through our social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, but also creating another account or profiles linked to our project, because we wanted to make them more, made for themselves. So we have a group that designed a Google site with a lot of information about cannabis. I think I post the link in one session. I think it was on Monday session. I don't have it from hand. Okay. And in that website, Google site is a very good for make website for free. No, it's not a WordPress website, but it works. It's super basic. But this group of students make this website about cannabis, information about cannabis, risk reduction, on the effects, positive, negatives, and everything. And also they made games, like sopa de letras. Sorry, my English is awful. But crucigramas.
Crosswords.
Yeah, that one. And also they make a video it was a super long video. I really appreciate to have this formation before all this, but we make a video and also like tips, no, recommendations for people who use cannabis or want to. Also, we made, I'm trying to look for the link because I have it somewhere. We also made another like posters that we launched on Instagram about, for example, ETS. Yes, ETS is the word.
STIs, sexually
Yes,
transmitted
yeah.
diseases, or
Sorry,
infections.
that one. It's called Stops ETS. Well, in Spanish. Let me give you the link. And the thing was, they made this another account profile on Instagram, but from our project Instagram profile. We repost all the publication that they made. Here it is. Wait. And you can watch it here. So that's one. We also have another one. It's called Alcoholímetro EPF, an alcoholimeter where you can reach your level of alcohol. About memes and TikTok videos about alcohol and the combination with another drug. It was super funny. I will give you the link here if you want to see it. But it was a huge, desafío, challenge, because, well, I didn't know everything that I learned now. And also because when you work on drugs or sexuality and gender perspective, you have to be super careful. And how are you going to say what you want to say without being the, oh, you are promoting people use drugs. No, I'm not telling you that, okay? Or you are promoting to be people gay. No, I'm not telling you that, no? So work with these topics with super young people, I mean 18, 20s, and they are from little towns. They are more super Catalans in this way, more like, well, they have their own culture. It's kind of difficult when you go and see that, oh, people can use drugs and not die in the intent, no? Or, oh, you can be gay and everything is good with that, no? So the thing was, like, the most challenging was to reach the audience. To, like, that's why I was asking you, Craig, how can we do to get to increase our followers? Because it was difficult. This is not a topic that everybody talks here, at least in Barcelona, or at least in Catalonia. Maybe me, because I am super into the theme, but it's not everyone. I mean, I have one poster that we designed with another group of another university that is not, it's in a little town of Catalonia. And it was like, don't do drugs, drugs kills you. You are going to be living in an ATM, and a picture with sharing with heroin, and one people with the X on the eyes. And it was like, whoa. I mean, okay, we know that that can happen, but not in that culture or in that environment. It was super crazy, the stigma that it's around. So my experience is that I understood super fine why publicists study all this, and it's like another professional career. I didn't study nothing of this, and it was super challenging for me to know the programs. Also, Canva was my best ally. I love Canva, super mega fan of Canva.
Cool, good to hear. I was just saying that's good to hear.
Yes, but it was the only platform that I knew. So I really appreciate the other platform that you said. and how to, and the other thing was, well, when we are done with our online campaign, how are we going to, how to say, see what we do and who people see our campaign. So I use Google Analytics because it was the only platform I knew, and it didn't work. It didn't work well. Because maybe I don't know how to use it. It's a new whole world for me. But I use, and the other what we used was Metricool.
I'm not sure of that one now. Oh, Metricool. Okay, yeah. Very good. Yeah, so yeah, I think there is a couple of
we can't hear you, Craig.
Oh, okay.
We can hear you actually.
Yeah, I can.
Really?
Yes.
I can't hear him.
Oh no. Is it your speaker? Oh no.
You can hear him, but I can't hear him.
That's great.
Yes, we can hear you, Craig.
Who can hear Craig?
I think everyone, bar you.
Everyone. Problem is behind your keyboard.
I can't hear him either.
And that's really weird.
Guys, maybe you are in Ireland. Maybe something is there bad with connection.
Bloody shades.
Oh no, I can't hear you now. Wow.
Now, is that any? Can you hear me now, Florian?
Yes, now yes. But you go and.
Wow, I don't know what's happening there.
Very weird. I'll just keep on talking. The other question I was going to ask you, but I can't really hear it, but maybe on the recording it'll show up, is what, like, for having different partnerships with different groups, I guess from your campaign with the referendum, how do you link those together, and what are the best? I know you mentioned before about like shared platforms, but I guess, do you have any added things that you could add about like shared platforms with different groups when you're doing social campaigns?
Yeah, okay, so I'm going to answer your question, but you can't actually hear me, which is a bit strange. So everyone else can still hear me, yeah? Yeah, okay. I might just kind of like just draw on something that Florencia was saying there as well. Yeah, look, I think it is really important to try and kind of review our campaigns at the end as well to see kind of like how well they worked. You know, and there are a couple of tools that you can use for that. So the Metricool being one, but even Talkwalker that I showed you there as well, that's another good one. You can search for hashtags as well as keywords in there. But also like the platform own analytics are really good as well. So like Facebook's Insights, Twitter analytics, like they're quite good. So they'll give you like a lot of analytics as to how far your own content reached. But it's really important to be able to kind of like learn from that. One question I suppose that I would just pose, and this is, you know, you don't need to necessarily answer it now, but like hopefully from like Florencia in your case, with like, you know, thinking back on that campaign, and for the rest of you guys as well, thinking back on recent kind of campaigns that you've been working on and taking that alongside the learning that we had over the last few days, hopefully do you feel more kind of like equipped to kind of build on that moving forward? So moving into like new campaigns now or new activities, do you have a better understanding of, you know, how to put that kind of proper plan in place and to create some kind of like engaging content for that? Yeah, so that was like, if you can, like that was my objective for this session. So hopefully that was the case. And there's a question there from MJ, and I'm gonna answer Florian's as well. And I think Elisa is wants to come in. Florian.
I can hear you now.
Oh, you can hear me now. Cool. Actually, I was just answering Florencia's question, so I'm just going to answer yours now. So you're just in time. So yes, just on the shared platforms, we worked primarily, like, and I work primarily through like Google Docs, Google Drive. I think it's really important when you're working in kind of collaborative partnerships like that, to use kind of like kind of consumer tech tools or platforms that people are already kind of like familiar with. So like, you know, share Drive, share Google Drive, share Google Docs, those types of things tend to work quite well. Also Slack. Slack is a really good kind of like team collaboration tool. I'm not sure if many of you are familiar with Slack, but that's really good as well. But then also like, and especially like I'm drawing on the S Equality campaign as an example. You know, I mentioned we had like loads of different groups all across the country. Well, we had like a point person in each one of those groups, and they were all part of a closed Facebook group. And that I was kind of like the administrator of. So when we needed to get kind of communications to them in a, you know, relatively quickly, that's where I would go. I would just go to that closed Facebook group and pop it in there and communicate with them in there. And that was like really effective for that kind of more real-time communications. So I'd say, yeah, just kind of focus on those tools that people are already most familiar with. So like a closed Facebook private group, or like, you know, a WhatsApp group, and then like things like shared Google Drive, Google Docs, and also Slack. So a couple of those there. MJ, sorry.
I just want, did you use, I know you mentioned a platform before, but anything for like scheduling like content? Because I've found myself before we had a video and individually sending out the video to every single partner, and that was a nightmare. But I guess you have.
Yeah, so like for scheduling content, yeah, so just kind of like those tools that I mentioned there, like if you're using kind of Content Cal, or like, you mean scheduling it to go out on social media, like? Yeah, so the likes of Content Cal, or like Facebook's Creator Studio is really good, especially if you're managing a couple of different pages. You could schedule like the one post to go out on different pages on Facebook and on Instagram. And then also like Tweetdeck is really good for scheduling content to go out. Hootsuite as well. So yeah, those tools there, and also the own platforms, like their tools are really good. So Lisa, I'll come to you in 1 second. So MJ put into the chat box there, if an organization has limited human resources, would you suggest focusing using one social media platform effectively, or spreading the limited resources between multiple platforms?
Yeah, and can I add to that quick?
Yeah.
So in addition to that, also, if you were to use a platform inconsistently and like infrequently, is it to the detriment of an organization? Like, can it actually be negative if you're not using it effectively? Thanks.
Yeah, two really good questions. Just on the first kind of part of that, yeah, you know, I do think if you do have limited resources, I would look at prioritizing the one that is most relevant for your kind of organization, for your campaign, based on your target audiences. You know that process that we worked through, where you outline your aims and your objectives and your target audiences. So if you're kind of like identifying there, yeah, look, we're primarily targeting young people. We want to achieve this, you know, and we're going to have the most kind of success on Instagram because that's where they're active. Well, I would actually prioritize that, you know, and put the most amount of resources there. And then like when you do have the capacity to kind of like check in with the others and add to that, do so. But yeah, like I wouldn't say like try and spread it too thinly, focus on that one, definitely. On the latter part of your, no problem, the latter part of your question was, sorry, what did you say? Oh yes, sorry, yes. I not that it's going to be kind of like detrimental, but what I would say is like you just really need to kind of like manage your expectations then. You know, I don't think you'll have much impact, or you won't see much of a return if it is this kind of ad hoc approach. You won't see like an increase in engagements. You won't see an increase in following. What can be to the detriment though is say if you were kind of posting on Instagram, maybe even infrequently, but people were responding and commenting and asking questions, and you weren't back and answering those questions, I think that could be an issue then as well, you know, because people, I think even subconsciously, other people see that and be like, oh, okay, well, they don't actually engage with their audiences. And I think that can be a problem. So I think, you know, it's when you're prioritizing, if you prioritize Instagram, prioritize engaging with your audiences as they're engaging with you as well.
Brad, thank you.
No problem. Elisa, do you want to come in there?
Yeah, so I have a question regarding how to manage social media in case you are implementing like international or regional campaign. I mean, if you have loads of languages included into your campaign, or like, for example, in our case, we have a campaign, Chase the Virus, Not People. Mostly it's a regional campaign, but also we are participating in a lot of international events where it's also included. And now we have it mostly like in Russian and English languages. So how to not cross posting like the same content, you know, like in 2 languages, or to use both languages. For example, in Facebook posts, is it better like in our page of the campaign to have all the information in 2 languages, or post in 1 language, which language to choose according what? So how, yeah, regarding languages basically and campaigns. So how to use it better.
Yeah, no, look, this is a good question. With Facebook, you can actually kind of like geo-target your content. So, you know, if there was kind of like a specific campaign that was running in Russia, you can set it that just audiences in that area are going to see that post. So that might be a way of ensuring, you know, so even if you are posting the same message in different languages for different audiences, it's okay to kind of like space them out and then geo-target them to the different audiences. So that might be one way of doing that. But also, I think people, if you are running, say, the one, like, okay, one thing I actually will preface this by saying is just like planning is super important, I think, when it comes to these kind of like regional or international campaigns, you know, making sure that there is like a kind of a robust plan in place to ensure that you're going to have, let's say, consistent output, but there isn't going to be an overloading of content for different audiences. But I think, you know, if you are running an international page and you have international audiences and the message is relevant for different countries, you know, people will understand that. And if they see a post that's kind of like not in their language, they'll understand, like if they know that you are kind of like an international kind of like organization and this message is relevant for those, like that's okay, you know what I mean? It's like recognizing, I think, that different messages are going to resonate with different audiences. That's okay, because social media audiences recognize that too, you know, just making sure that it is kind of like spaced out. Yeah, like, and I would say, like, you know, just maybe trial and error as well, you know, test. I think like one of the great things about social media as well is the ability to just be able to kind of like test what we're doing. So, you know, you might say, okay, well, this week we're going to test, like, you know, the one message for, and putting that out for all different audiences and see kind of who and where they respond to that. But then the next week, then you might actually try and be a bit more targeted for different regions, different countries, and then review at the end of those 2 weeks and see, well, what actually worked better, and learn from that. It's a difficult one, but I think maybe just testing is probably the best way.
I'd just like to add, so yeah, that's a super new feature on Facebook, so you can put the text in English, and then it's got an option to say, would you like to post this in other languages? So in the same way as you could add alt text to a picture, you just put the translation, I think.
Yeah, we do it, but the issue with it is, for example, if you want to post a text with a picture, and if a picture includes words, and for example, words are written, like the picture can be only in Russian or in English, and then the text will be like, you can choose the language, you know? So then basically in these cases, it doesn't work. Like just for text, yeah, it's perfect, we use it, but if, for example, there are pictures or videos, then it doesn't work.
Maybe in those kind of cases, it's kind of like relying on, like, say, the text to get that message across, and then just focusing on a different type of visual, where you're not where you're not kind of including that text.
I know there's a Portuguese organization, and on their Instagram what they do is like just every post they have like they put 2 images, and so the first one is Portuguese and then the second one is English, or if it's something that's got more of an international focus, they do the English one first and then the Portuguese second. So I don't know, they've got really good engagement as well, like they're a good example, so it works for them, I guess.
Yeah, thanks, Kira. Yeah, I do think it is kind of just, yeah, like audiences won't mind too much, like seeing kind of like different languages as well. So, but it just, I would say, yeah, just monitor it and see how it goes. Any other questions? Okay, so can I ask at this stage if people wouldn't mind? So what's the key takeaway that you have kind of like learned, or that you will be taking away from this week in these sessions moving forward? So if people want to kind of come in and they want to share what they've learned. If no one comes in, I'm going to think this is an absolute failure. Yeah.
No, it wasn't. It was really, really interesting, and I'm really sorry that yesterday or the day before I couldn't make it. But just I'm preparing for the Global Day of Action, and it's a lot of work. But something that I found really interesting off this was, yeah, definitely for me the biggest takeaway message is about being more methodical about like the idea of having a posting calendar, because currently it's all very reactive, and I have tried to be more sort of like proactive in terms of organizing the kind of content that I'm putting out there. But it is also, and this I guess is the caveat to this, like I notice the importance of planning for content in advance, but the caveat is most of us are in really under-resourced organizations, and this sector, like, I think we need to also be very kind to ourselves, because I would love to like do everything that is ideal, but I'm also doing 3 different jobs at the same time. So like, yeah, for me, it's about taking as much as possible as I can from, yeah, some of the ideas that you have very kindly shared, and see how I get to implement them. And the idea of planning for content is for me the strongest personally, and I think to a great extent is applicable in what I do.
Cool.
So
Thank you. No, you're welcome. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, and look, that is something that I am really conscious of as well, you know, because like I primarily operate in the kind of like in the NGO, in the campaigning space as well, you know, and so that is a common frustration and a challenge, you know, like there's so much kind of like goodwill, enthusiasm, appetite there, but everyone is kind of is stretched. So, you know, hopefully, like I try to approach this taking that into consideration, you know, and just looking at kind of like those limited resources, what can we do and what can we achieve? You know, and that's both, I think, effective planning will do a lot of that, and then also even just being aware of those tools that are available that make things a whole lot easier and take out a lot of kind of like that time element anyway, at least, you know. So thank you very much. Anyone else want to come in?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, hi.
I have learned to make videos from video websites that you have mentioned today. I was very worried about that because this is a thing I didn't know before. I will use this for my digital campaign for Global Day of Action. So thank you for that.
You're very welcome. Yeah, I can't wait to see all of like these videos and graphics.
Bidable, Women 5. So I have like took a note of all of them, and I'm gonna practice today.
Great. Yeah, I look forward to seeing them all.
I found
thank you.
Yes,
Sorry.
hi, Lisa.
Yeah, I found it very useful yesterday's exercise actually, like when we went in the groups for all the questions on the digital campaigning, on creating campaign. I mean, it was definitely like not so much time for us to organize ourselves and discuss everything, but it was really great to, yeah, to receive all, like this basic knowledge and understand like from like what's the first stage, what's the second stage, what should be included into it. So yeah, thank you very much appreciated.
No problem at all. And just to say, like, so that workbook that I provided, oh yeah, and like I know like that there wasn't enough time to fully kind of like work through all of that, but it was just to even demonstrate the process and the kinds of questions we should be asking ourselves. But that workbook is also on the For a Change website. In that digital strategy section, the workbook is there, all of the same questions as well. So if you want to kind of like take that for your own organizations. And it is, I like, you know, there is a focus on digital campaigning there, but I think it's also relevant to wider kind of campaign strategy as well. And, you know, how we kind of like work through influencing change and changing kind of like narrative around kind of like these issues as well. So Richie is dropping off there. He wasn't able to hear. Thanks, Richie. Not that you can hear me. Okay, anyone else want to come in there?
Just from a U-Troy's perspective, but I'm sure I'd give the space for other people to say theirs too. It's just, we really are going to start being much more digitally active over the next 2 years while we finish implementing a lot of our projects. So this is very good as a starting point, at least, to try to figure out how we can do that. And I also think the social listening part is a very interesting thing to start playing around and looking and sort of tracking what we do online a bit more. So I think, and I'm hoping that we can all just try to figure out how we'll work together a bit more too in the long term.
Yeah, thanks for that, Florian.
Thank you very much for that, Craig.
You're very welcome. I do actually, I forgot to take a photo, and I know people are starting to drop off because they have other things to go to as well. So will we take a photo before we kind of go any further? So if you don't want to be in the photo, maybe turn off your video, but if you do, switch it on. Okay, 1 second now. How am I gonna, okay. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Good stuff.
I think Nina wanted to say something to you too, Craig.
Perfect.
Yeah. Hi guys, can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you, Nina. Yeah.
Okay. I was gonna say something, and also it's sort of not a question, but it's sort of an issue regarding social media content I wanted to share with you guys. So I'm sorry, I was really on the fence about saying anything because I like don't know any of you and I'm really new to all of this. But basically, okay, first of all, I would like to start by saying thank you very much for this sort of workshop. I have never actually handled the organization sort of media, social media, you know, presence up to this point. So I really had like 0 skills, and I really appreciated all the tips and tricks. And also I wanted to say that, yes, my main takeaway as well was the like importance of having basically a stable social media presence for the organization. But for example, the issue we ran into, I'm with Regeneration, we're Belgrade based, and most of what we do can anyone hear me? Am I okay? Yeah. So most of what we do is basically has to do with specific projects like Support Don't Punish, or you know, stuff like that, things that happen, you know, at a certain point in time. And then there's we do a campaign, and we do post when we're doing the campaign, but that content has always been pretty sporadic, you know, due to the nature of the project or calls to action or whatever. And we had an issue actually with creating engaging content for in between the, you know, calls to action and the projects and stuff. And so at one point we decided we would do sort of a series of posts on Fridays, which we called Psychoactive Friday, when we sort of just chose a different substance, psychoactive substance, for each Friday. And then we had sort of, it was a series of informative posts, like about the effects and side effects and what to do if there are issues and stuff like that. And, you know, all the information basically you need. But that was also a pretty limited format because, you know, there's a limited number of substances. And then when that was done, I think, again, we still lack like a stable social media presence. So for us, that was sort of an issue, you know, regarding creating like content that you can share very regularly. So I'm sorry if it was a stupid question or whatever.
No, thank you for that. And like, actually, that's probably something that I probably should have mentioned as well, but that's actually a great way of approaching it. You know, so when we are thinking of like a content calendar, can we think of like, you know, a series of content that we can use to build out the calendar, you know? So every Thursday, you know, we post about this, you know, things like that, you know. So if it's like a throwback Thursday or whatever, you know, trying to even latch onto those types of conversations that take place on social media, but they really work, you know. So if you have an FAQ section on your website, for example, you know, create a series of graphics that includes one FAQ, and then you can just put out like one a week, you know. So then for the next 6 weeks, you know that that's going out every Tuesday morning. You know, similar, do you have other kind of like sections of your website or other initiatives that you can think of like that? And you know, 2 or 3, suddenly, you know, you start to really build out your content calendar, but thinking in that way of having different series, and then that kind of like helps to maintain that kind of consistency as well, you know. Because like, I know I understand that can be a challenge as well, as like trying to actually, you know, again, back to having that kind of like will, appetite, enthusiasm, but you're trying to match the content with that as well. So it's just doing some brainstorming, like doing an audit of your website, like looking through your website and saying, okay, well, what information is here that we can repackage in different ways and push it out through social media. And I think that will start to help you to populate your content calendars as well, and to ensure that consistency. But that was really good. Yeah, great approach, Nina. Thank you.
Thank you.
So MJ, do you like, I'm just noticing, seeing your question there. Do you want me to read it out, or do you want to come in?
Yeah, I was actually about to run. I just wanted to leave that last point, but just, I mean, I know most of us, I think all of us do in our work, but just considerations for consent, you know, if we're sharing pictures of people, and also it goes to crediting people's work when they've created content or things. So just to keep that in mind, especially with like articles and stuff. I've seen it where people have written articles and used images of people where they're physically identifiable and not receive consent. So I just wanted to mention that. But yeah, thanks.
You're welcome. No, and that is a really important point. And I think, you know, most of us will hopefully kind of like be aware of this in our work. You know, if we're engaging with traditional media and things like that, you know, how important it is to have people's consent when kind of like sharing their images, and crediting work as well. Really, really important.
We had a big issue last week, I think it was, because the head of the drug section of the World Health Organization was meeting in a Zoom, and some person in the Zoom took a picture of it, of his face, and then posted on it in social media, and it was an informal chat, you know. And it almost caused, there was people freaking out left, right, and center. It was anyway.
On that, does everyone have consent for this image to be shared on social media? Yeah, cool.
Yeah, of course. Yes. Yeah, we are cool with it.
Cool. We're making sure. Also, just something I thought of there, kind of related to that as well, is just about kind of user-generated content. Is that kind of something that you would be familiar with as well? So it's like, you know, when you're trying to encourage kind of like your audiences to share content on social media related to, you know, like a campaign or an activity that you are running. So, you know, if you have like a hashtag and you're asking people to post on their social media with their own story, their own images, like that can work quite well as well. But, and again, kind of like along those lines, if you're then kind of like taking that content and pushing it out through your platforms, just make sure that you're kind of giving kind of credit for that as well. But user-generated content where you can kind of successfully implement that into your digital campaigns, it works quite well, and really kind of demonstrates that momentum, and that there's kind of like a large kind of movement behind this. Any other questions, reflections? People want to share what they learned?
Yeah, just to add my feedback here.
Yeah.
The digital strategy section 7 questions were very helpful for me. I will use this a bit in managing content for social media. Apart from that, video making websites you mentioned earlier are going to be useful for me, as I mentioned that in the comment section earlier as well.
Brilliant. Thanks a million. I'm really glad that you were able to kind of like take that from it. And I know, like, I know across the 3 kind of like sessions, I talked a lot about those kind of 7 questions and those steps. But, you know, I do think that like much of say how I approach this is just even that thinking. So it's more kind of like the strategy behind it and how we're approaching it, because I think, you know, that's when we can kind of get the most out of it. So so yeah, thank you for that.
Just one question too, and I know you probably touched on it too, is free stock images. Do you have any particular go-to?
I sure do. I'll just bring up that slide again here. So I'll just share my screen. Move this chat box out of the way. So they're the 3 that I use. So Pexels, Pixabay, and Unsplash. You know, most kind of like are copyright free, but within there, you know, you might have to give credit to the photographer to use it. You know, so there's different kind of licensing agreements. So just make sure that you're kind of like aware of those, but they're quite good. Somebody else is mentioning there. So Wikimedia Commons, Flickr. Yeah, Flickr is good as well. I'm just making sure again that they're kind of Creative Commons licensed as well.
One question.
Yeah.
Can we have the slides?
Yes.
About the first, second, and third day?
Yes, I will. So I don't have all of your emails, but Florian would. So I'll send them all to Florian. Florian, you can circulate them out.
And I think what we'll do too is we'll send out those videos at the same time, and we'll also put up the videos on YouTube for anyone to access at a later time.
So Katerina has just put in the chat box there about using the Noun project for small icons. Okay, that's a new one for me. I haven't come across that, but we'll check it out. Anyone else have anything they would like to add? A learning, a question, a reflection? Okay, I know I've actually I flew through the early part of the session because I was conscious that people thought that this might be an hour long. But Florian, I don't know what you think. If people are happy enough, you know, I'm happy to draw to a close at this stage. I did kind of plan on breaking out into groups as well to focus on kind of like the creating content aspect of this, but I am conscious that people maybe were aware that it wasn't going on this long. So if people are happy, we can draw to a close now, and you can go off and in your own time try out these different tools as well, and kind of like see how you might use them as part of your digital communications work moving forward. How do people feel about that? I'm seeing nodding.
Sounds good to me, Craig. Thank you very much for everything.
No
Thank
problem.
you.
And apologies to everyone again that I messed up the calendar invite for the last day.
No, that's all right. You know, and look, we ran for an hour and a half there. You know, and I think it was still kind of like a good session. So what I wanted to really just get across was the different tools that are available, but also I wanted to really provide that space for people just to kind of ask questions, share stuff that they've been working on, and also kind of like what they learned from the session. So I think we've achieved both of those things on this session anyway. Florencia, do you want to come back in there?
Yes, well, thank you for everything, Florian and Craig. It was super useful. And also, maybe in the future, we can organize another workshop, but this time about how to read the analytics for the review of our campaign online, because
Yeah.
I get lost completely in that topic, because we need to know what is the impact of our campaign. So maybe for another workshop in the future, that will be very appreciated. And thank you again.
You're very welcome. Yeah, we might look at doing another workshop kind of like on the analytics piece specifically, but also I think, you know, maybe it might be worth kind of pulling this group together in 3 or 6 months time to see how people are getting on, kind of implementing some of the stuff that they've learned over this time. And so we might join those two things up there. So kind of like a review of how people are getting on, and then also the look at the analytics.
That would be awesome. Super awesome.
Okay, if that's all, then we might draw to a close. I again just want to take this opportunity to thank Florian for organizing all of this, and to all of you for joining over the last kind of few days. I've really enjoyed it. You know, I've just really enjoyed it, and I think the international perspective, having you all here, sharing your own experiences, working towards that kind of common goal, common good, is really kind of like heartening, and it's the kind of work that I love to do. So thank you very much to all of you, and the best of luck over the coming months.
Thank you.
Same. Take care.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Craig.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank
Thank you
you so much.
so much.
Bye.
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 Very much. Bye.
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 Bye, Peter.
Florian, do you want to just stay on for a minute there?
Yeah.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye, Florian. Nice to see you again. Nice to.
Bye.
Bye.
I'm just going to stop the recording as well, actually.